Hello everyone, welcome to a new banner review, this time looking at the lovely gift banner. I'll also be touching a bit more about the 4-star focus, as I was actually completely wrong about the rates in my pinned up comment on my thoughts on the Fat channel. I'll explain more once we get to Conrad, but first I'll start with the most underwhelming unit of the banner, which is Rudolph. Yeah. Also, I do want to point out one thing. I'm a bit late for this. The weaponry fine tier list might be also a bit late because I have 3 times machining again this week, so yay! But I'll try to do my best to make it a bit less late than this is. I tend to work a bit better under pressure, so this should come out a bit better than the lovely gift banner, which took me forever to just even want to start. Though that's a problem in general with any LA banner. I struggle with last year, I'll struggle with this year. 2 calves, 2 armors. It's a recipe for disaster. That's all I'll say. Very similar to the Halloween banner, which is always just armors and calves. Anyway, Rudolph. Now, Rudolph by nature is not exactly a unit you can consider to be bad. The problem is more so the fact that he doesn't really have a whole lot going for him. He has special spiral, so he can use cooldown -1 with bonfire, face tank, and one-shot with bonfire. That's basically his entire shtick. The entire idea behind Rudolph is to one-shot with Rudolph. That's it. And that's kind of the problem. It's very one note. It's meant to do one thing, he does it well, but that's the one thing he does. That said, Threaten, Attack, Death is probably the best Threaten skill of all of the double stat Threaten skill we're going to get. In fact, actually a skill I'm going to be hunting for my gem key. That skill is really good in general, not really for armored units like Rudolph, and I don't understand why we got like Threaten, Attack, Res on Sophis and Threaten, Attack, Death on Rudolph. It doesn't really work, especially for Rudolph. The way it works for Rudolph is essentially, you want them to get within 2 space, then you want to immediately end turn. What? It's kind of just weird. It does not really give you any, you know, extra utility. Whereas if you're a ranged unit, especially a bow unit, you can just be like, oh yeah, I threatened you, now I can kill you. And Threaten, Attack, Death is really good at also shutting down Rudolph himself, ironically enough. Because then they lose 5 attack, you gain 5 attack, which means the Torn Lance check is a lot less consistent. That's another thing in general, is res is kind of trash, so getting hit by an attack ploy is not exactly difficult. In which case, you're sitting at basically 54 attack, which makes the weapon a bit inconsistent. Which means you don't even get the effect off, which is kind of iffy overall. But at the very least, he's going to be decent in the end of the player as a one-shot nuke. The problem is that he kinda need this encounter to function, and that's kind of a bummer in general, because, I mean, if I'm going to be pulling for a unit like Rudolph, but then have to pull for another unit because he can't really function that by himself, generally, it needs to be a really, really good unit, or at least a fan favorite of yours. Sadly, Rudolph is not exactly a fan favorite, and, well, he's not exactly worth it either. He has plenty of competition, especially if you consider Christmas Ephraim. Christmas Ephraim only has one problem, which is the fact that his weapon is extremely awful. For one thing, which is the fact that he can be next to someone, therefore he cannot keep his armor march up. Which makes him a bit awkward. Also, the numbers are a bit squished. Please tell me if it's still readable. Game Press kinda decided to change their website, and now it kind of just led up to this. It's kind of a mess. They kind of decided to get rid of the left part of the site, so this website is like... The stat basically takes 60% of the page. It's too big, therefore I have to squish it down. It's really annoying. But yeah, hopefully this looks still fine. I'm sure it's going to be a bit annoying to find, but to me it looks readable even from afar. Hopefully it's more or less the same for also phone users. Time will tell though. Anyway, Ephraim is a very, very notable unit to compare to him, however, purely because his weapon gives him 4 across the board. Now, you can make the point that Rudolph essentially gets 6 attack, def, and res because of his weapon. 1 it procs, which, yes, you have a lot of attack, but anything with 42 attack and a super boon attack, aka any unit with 42 attack, will get very close. In other words, you're not exactly in a very safe place, to say the least. Especially since, like I said, all you need is a debuff to make Rudolph just lose his weapon effectiveness. That's something with Ephraim that actually is a benefit in this case. He doesn't care if you have more attack than him, even though that's really hard to get. He doesn't care, because all he needs to do is to be within no one's range, and that's it. That's all you need. You get 4 across the board, you still have the cooldown -1. It's just in general a better option. So, yeah, and Bolt Fighter is a bit more fitting for him either, which is another thing. Special Fighter is good on Rudolph if you are using a tank set. And even there, that's still very iffy. Honestly, I'm gonna just say this way, Rudolph is kinda not worth it. Especially being a seasonal with Brave Hector being a thing. Keep in mind, Brave Hector has Ostian Counter, which is basically offering 4 attack and 4 def, which makes him very comparable to Rudolph. The difference here is that Brave Hector is very easy to pull, especially right now with the Hero Fest. And guess what? The Hero Fest runs at the same time as this banner. Not to mention, his weapon gives him basically QR5, which he can combo into Bolt Fighter and still have his seal slot open, something Rudolph cannot do. Although Rudolph blocks follow-up, it's still kinda, you know, it's not enough overall, I feel like. Especially with how many weapons can just grant extra follow-up, then it comes down to a battle of who has the highest speed, or who has the highest attack, so he has to win both the attack check and the speed check depending on the situation. It's kind of a mess. Whereas blocking follow-ups is kind of rare, so Bolt Fighter becomes a lot more consistent. Same thing with Quick Riposte. Overall, I don't think Rudolph is completely worse than Ephraim, but I think Ephraim is also a lot more reliable in the way his weapon works, because it's completely within your hand, whether you choose to have the buff or not. You can't be screwed over by something like attack smoke or anything of the sort, which is kind of a plus. Especially considering how common attack smoke is. But yeah, like I said, he's decent, it's just not worth it considering he's a seasonal. And Brave Hector is a very easy unit to pull at this point, if you don't even have him yet. As far as builds are concerned, I would definitely just use the one-shot build, which requires this encounter. Ignis is pretty good with Special Spiral, because at that point it's a 3 cooldown because of the weapon. Special Spiral pushes it down to 1, which means you only get hit and proc Ignis. It's basically the same idea as the base kit, with basically this encounter and not much else. The only difference here is that, well, it's Ignis instead of Bonfire and Special Spiral to be a bit more, you know, able to use this. Do note, you can also use Aether with Quick Riposte here, because you'll be able to just have Special Spiral give you 2 charge, then Brave Lucina gives you the other 2 charge, and then you proc Aether, which means you get hurt, proc Brave Lucina allows you to proc Aether, you get back most of the HP you lost, and then whatever's HP is left is gone, because you blocked their follow-up. It's very rudimentary, but welcome to armored units. They have, like, no real... how to call this? They don't really have anything unique to them. It's really hard to build anything interesting on them. That's kind of just how it is. What can I say? Next up is not Conrad. We are still on the armored train. Let's talk about Faye. Oh boy, Faye. Toby is a great artist for her. Too bad that it's another one of these armored unit with no speed stat. Well, more or less. We'll get to that once we get to that. So essentially, now we get the concept of what the weapon of the banner is with Budding Bow. Now, there's a few problems with this. Bow units that have less def than res are fairly rare. Okay? And in such, getting the sturdy effect is kind of, well, not useful. And the blocking and follow-up doesn't tend to be that useful either. Let me just put it this way. How many bow units can really take advantage of this? There's Halloween Jacob, there's Faye, and then that's it. Because every other ones tend to have already enough speed that they block the follow-up to begin with. And if they don't block the follow-up to begin with, they tend to have way more def than res, or at least more def than res, to a point where you'd rather have a res version of this weapon. I don't understand what you would want to use it on. Most units that use Sturdy Impact, okay, as bow units, are units that are flying, okay? They're typically the unit that had the Brave Lane bulk spread, which is 18 def, 28 res. Something like Wings of Fate Inoka, which is a unit that has 18 def and 28 res, which at first was really bad until Sturdy Impact came out. Once Sturdy Impact came out, it allowed her to have 28-28 while being colorless, have more attack when attacking, and also make full use of her bow. The problem is, typically those units come with a weapon to make them unique. If you get that weapon out for this weapon, it kind of just defeats the purpose altogether. And then the other units that actually have less def than res, like Niles, again, either has a good pref, but even if they had the pref, okay, like Niles does, there is no way in hell you would see me run Budding Bow on a Niles. Because at the end of the day, he already has enough speed, so blocking a follow-up doesn't matter. It's all about getting the defense and attack. And I mean, if that's what you're going for, there's literally a very cheap option. In fact, it's called free at that point. That's called the Candle Wax Bow, which also helps with blowing. It's honestly very iffy as far as a bow is concerned. So, yeah, and in general, the weapons of this batch is not exactly really good outside of Silks. But that's a different video entirely with the GHB Tempestral Tiras update. Overall, I would just say, like, it's not a weapon that's really worth it. A lot of people have been, like, overrating it as, like, this amazing bow that a lot of unit could use. Frankly, I don't see it. And as far as Death Blow is concerned, that's probably one of the worst blow skills. Only worse than... only one that's worse than this one is Darting Blow 4. Because it's Darting Blow 4. It's kind of irrelevant. We live in an age where Swift Sparrow 3 exists, where he basically gets 7 speed at the cost of 2 attack, while maintaining an actual attack stat. Goodbye, Darting Blow. You are useless even on launch. And then you have also Sturdy Impact, which again you lose 2 attack but gain 10 def for it, which is the 10 def is typically what you want. You don't give a damn about the rest. And then you have Mirror Impact, which is similar but for res. You just have so many options nowadays that Death Blow 4 feels very unneeded. The only unit nowadays that really wants Death Blow 4 is Reinhardt. But guess what? Swift Sparrow tends to be his better A skill at this point. I shit you not. This is real. Although, I'm still waiting on a low speed res. Overall, I will just say, like, as far as fodder is concerned, Armor Marsh is really the main thing here. But as far as the unit is concerned, well, there's a different thing to say here. So they decided to look at Jacob and were like, okay, Jacob is a unit that worked, how about we literally do the same thing, but again? But this time with 2 more def, 6 more res, basically the same speed, but a super boon in speed. Also, 5 more attack, at the cost of 1 whole HP. Faye is also a trainee unit, meaning that her BST went from 175 to 179. Further cementing the fact that you only get 4 BST from trainees now, at least for ranged units. Gonna be honest, I find it very weird that Faye has the same BST as Rudolph, but whatever, right? It makes no sense, but that's just how this game is sometimes. As far as to why Marth is here, that's another point I wanted to bring out. So, in a world where Christmas Marth exists, Faye comes in. Why in God's name would you ever invest in a Faye when Marth exists? Unless you like the character, of course. That's a different story. But Marth and Faye are just as limited as one another. And you're trying to tell me that you would build Faye over this. It's kind of pointless. Jacob is definitely completely power crept though. So I guess Faye would be the second best archer. The main thing that makes Alm so much better is the fact that he actually has a really good duo skill. Scores better in Arena because 185 BST because duo unit. Has Fire Emblem, which is really good. A Prev that's not really amazing, but it's 3 across the board for literally nothing. And, you know, in general, Marth is just a really fantastic unit. So Faye is kind of not redundant, but not exactly really needed. Marth is just kind of busted in general. There's just nothing to be said here. That said, if you do want to build Faye, well, here's what I'd do. Set on the left is just Brave Bow. Surprise, surprise! And set on the right is more so a Aether set with Brave Lucina support. This should not really surprise anyone. Again, this is kind of similar to Rudolph in the sense that when you make a unit like Faye, or any armored units, if they don't have a whole lot of speed, it's really hard to make a lot of options work. That's kind of one of the problems here. But, well, that's kind of just how it is. Another thing you can do is instead of Aether and Special Spiral is to run Special Fighter with Bonfire. Wow, I wonder where I've seen that one before. Yeah. Don't worry, I know, guys. I know. There's just not a whole lot you can do in general with armored units, as I said. Another thing you can do is this, because, well, believe it or not, Faye can actually have decent amount of speed, though she's really reliant on speed ploy. That said, there's another thing you can do, and it's to run Big Yuling Bow. Big Yuling Bow is really good because it allows you to get 2 across the board if the enemy's at full HP. So, yeah, it's a good second option over Slaying Bow if you think your speed is a bit too iffy. That said, speed plus 3 is only here because mixed phasing. Another thing you can do, and that's only if you get rid of Aether. If you get rid of Aether for something else that does not actually heal you, and you run Bonfire, you can use Brazen attack speed instead. And that's kinda it. Typically, if you're gonna do this, run Ignis with Big Yielding Bow, please. For the love of God, please do that. Because then you'll be sitting at 41 speed, and with the Brazen, you'll be pushing yourself up to 48. And Ignis basically means you'll hit, get hit, proc Ignis. Simple as that. So, yeah. Moving on to Conrad. Oh boy, Conrad. The unit a lot of people are sleeping on. Again. Despite the fact that he's literally base Conrad, but again. But red. Let me just put it this way. There's just about no one that has a stat line like this for Cav sword units. The closest we have to this is like Rid at 36 def and 29 res, which is still behind in res to a point where this guy can ploy, Rid can't. There's another one, but I don't remember exactly. I know it's another one of those units that's really reliant on their pref, though. So, yeah. Now, as far as rates are concerned, I do want to bring attention to this here. This is my spreadsheet I use for calculating odds. So, as you can see, the odds of this banner are like 2.5% for a 5-star focus red. Which, by the way, I will repeat what I said on the Fed channel. The very obvious part is that Conrad should not be available as a 5-star. Please remove him as a 5-star. Thank you. Moving on, though. 2.9% for blue, 4.1 for green, 2.8 for colorless. Now, the reason why this is important is that let's just see what a 4-star focus rate is. This is the rate of a 4-star focus. You have 10% chance to pull Conrad. Now, I bet people might be wondering, wait, what? But it's 3%. Why is it so high? Do you guys remember back a few months, maybe even a year at this point, when we had dual focus? Remember when we got like a focus of Helbindi and Legiarn for a voting gauntlet? Or Surtur and Ilger for another banner? The rates of those banners were insane because the 3% focus rate was separated into 2 units. This is what I mean by the lower the amount of 5-star there is on a banner, the better it is. In fact, I can assure you, if I were to use this calculator and remove Conrad from a focus, from the focus essentially, as far as 5 stars is concerned, the rate would explode for the other units. In fact, let's do this, just so you guys understand. Let's say I'm here, and then I basically make all of these 3. And then I remove 1 here. You see this? This is the rate on a 3-man banner if Conrad was not there. If Conrad was just a 4-star focus, okay? Without being a 5-star focus, this would be the rate for the 5 stars of this banner. The 2.9% becomes 3.8. The 4.1 becomes 5.4. And the what was that? 2.9 becomes 3.7 or 2.8. The way it works is quite simple. The focus rate is separated by the amount of focus. It does not matter what color it is, my dude. It does not. Having 2 blues on the same banner does not automatically make blue worse. Okay? That's not how it works. The way it calculates odds is different. Anyway, putting back this to 4. And so there's that. Another thing that's worth mentioning is the fact that since there is 4 focus and there's only 1 focus for 4-star, you see the odds for the other ones? Yeah, you can do times 4. That's basically what a focus 4-star of that color would be. Green would be 16.5% for a focus 4-star. This is insane. Those odds are insane. So really, at this point, the odds are fine. The only thing I would just change is just, you know, remove the 5-star exclusive for Conrad. Because if you remove the 5-star version straight away, first off, you cannot get Pity Broken, so there's a color that's kind of an out to avoid getting Pity Broken, or at least to some extent have less chance to get Pity Fisted, which is great. And on top of that, the banner itself gets better odds in general. 4-man banners are absolutely disgusting, and there's a reason why I try to avoid summoning on all of them. Just like I tried to not summon on legendaries, but end up always having to because, you know, Legendary Leaf, Lucina Cuss Project, you know. And Kade is just how it is, yeah? Anyway, with that said, overall, the rates are really good for 4-star. It's just really a shame that you can't get Pity Fisted. Another thing to note is the fact that you have an actual chance, or not really a chance, but if you're, whenever your pity rate increases, the chance of getting your focus lowers. So that's worth mentioning. It's not by a whole lot, by the way. It's typically 0.001, or 0.01 rather, % every time the PD rate increases. So it's really not that bad. Anyway, moving on to the unit itself, just like base Conrad, this Conrad is actually really good. Because it's literally a red version of the blue one. Now, there's a lot of set I've already showcased on my GHB tier list update for Conrad. If you're curious about that, look at this. Not all of the weapons are available for sword units, because some are just lance exclusive because of seasonals. Still, with that said, let's move on to builds, because there's, as I said, there's no comparison you can make here. The only comparison you would get are stuff like Rid, which are kind of like locked in one play style because of Gyol. And if it wasn't for Gyol, Rid would be garbage. So, moving on. So, essentially, this is base Conrad, what with the added benefit of being able to get boons. This is really good, actually, for Conrad. Because Speed Plus opens a lot of things for him at higher merges. Like, for example, look at the set on the right. You're basically looking at, oh, let's see here, 43 def and 45 res? Okay. Had low attack speed and attack ploy, and you're basically looking at 51 def and 53 res? And believe me, 39 res is enough to ploy. But yes, 51, 53. Really tanky already. What about the speed now? Well, with attack speed bond and low attack speed, you're at 47 speed. Which is really solid. 47 speed overall is quite solid, and the attack in general is also quite good. You're basically looking at 61 attack. This works really well in tandem with Brave Lucina and Aether. Surprising no one. Brave Lucina was one of the reasons Conrad was really good to begin with. And the set on the left is Heart's Blade. This is the weapon I wanted as a lance, and well, guess what? It's an actual thing here. So, you're basically looking at 50 defense and 48 res. That's 40 damage per Ignis. Which, again, with Brave Lucina, you can proc in every fight, which is insanely useful. So So running attack speed bond, and the reason why you want attack speed bond is because, well, your attack is kind of lacking to begin with. This is with a def refine because you actually have enough speed because of the speed boon, by the way. So you get 44 speed, but because of Heart's Blade, you're pushed to 47 because it's 3 across the board if you're next to someone. As far as your attack is concerned, you're at 64. So 64 attack, 47 speed. That's pretty good. As far as def is concerned, you have 50-48 because of Heart's Blade, 53-51 because of low attack speed, 58-56 because of attack ploy. Yeah, that's right, 58 def, 56 res. That's without Brave Lucina's stats. Because if you add Brave Lucina, that's 64 def and 62 res if you're smart enough to run like drive def, drive res plus the weapon. Yeah, over 60 bulk in both def and res. Kinda busted. As for the second page of sets, Petal Parasol. Now there's a weapon nobody fucking remembers. Don't worry, I did too to some extent. But then I kind of realized, wait, that weapon exists. So what Petal Parasol does is whenever the enemy has a penalty, you basically gain 5 attack and 5 speed. So, for example, if you have someone on your team, like a Versa, like Rid, like Guntra, like Loot, units that can provide at least some debuff support to allow Conrad to get in at first, or even just like a unit with a lot of res with a ploy. If you have those types of units, so Conrad can just go in and kill whatever he's dealing with, or even at this point he's so bulky, you can actually just make him attack something and just, if you kill it, cool. If you don't, anything around it is debuffed anyway, so these guys will basically make you have enough speed. This set becomes basically a multi-phase 47 speed for the guy. You're basically looking at 47 speed on any phase as long as the enemy is debuffed in a way or another. This is especially good if you have a Versa to combo into this. Or, you know, a Ployer. Then this playstyle becomes actually very similar to Rid, and Gale Force becomes a very good option. Because you can just rush in, kill something, proc Gale Force, kill something else, and then everything is debuffed, meaning that when they attack you, they fail to kill you, and then you kill them, basically. It's very simple. Attack Smoke, comboed into low attack, essentially means that you're looking at 53 defense and 55 res, okay? Believe you me, it's really hard at that point for him to die. Especially since on top of this, he's basically looking at 61 attack and 47 speed. The only issue with this is that you don't have any procs to kill anything with. Though, if that's the problem, you can still just, you know, run Bonfire, hit, get hit, proc Bonfire. That's still an option. Really, it comes down to your preference, really. And then the set on the right is just a more bulky set for, well, bulk. You'll be basically able to hit 50 def and 50 res with this because of the speed res bond and safeguard, on top of 47 speed, and also, you know, not much extra attack. That's kind of the problem of the set, but with Ignis and Brave Lucina, this is not exactly a problem. If you combo attack Smoke with the lull, you're at 60 def and res. Straight up on enemy phase. Getting killed becomes extremely difficult. And that's kind of just the beauty of Conrad. Conrad's a unit that can actually take a lot of damage, but also can benefit from it. In fact, you can also use Brazens if you want. That's also something he can do pretty well if he's not running Aether or anything like this to heal himself. I did not really include every set, because at the end of the day, if I really would add every single set you can make with Conrad, we would literally have 5 or 6 pages of builds, okay? Is a very, very, very versatile unit, especially because of that speed boon. So yeah, overall a fantastic unit. Way better, in fact, than Silk, if anything. Just overall, the only problem is that you need to go up to +10. So, unless you really like the character, I would say save your orbs. We're going to get a 4-star like focus on every banner anyway, right? So if you want to just go for something else, that's fine too. But yeah, those are just my 2 cents on Conrad. Moving on to Alm and Celica, and oh boy, I sure love Alm getting another busted alt. Oh boy. Oh, that feels great, especially, you know, after Marita getting an alt and just not being too great, and, you know, everything like that. Yes, I'm still bitter about this. Doesn't help that I don't really consider Alm to be that great a Lord. I think he's very middle of the pack as far as Lords are concerned. Very, very overrated Lord. Personally, anyway. So, Big Chin Celica and Stoned Ass Alm over there basically comes in with a busted weapon that might as well have no restriction, because restrictions are be at over 70% health or have a buff on you. Man, that's totally not like 90% of the time or anything, especially with a Rouse skill. I've no words for this. So essentially what it does is that at start of combat, it basically just decides to take your def, take 25% of it, and add it to their own attack. Some people have been pointing out, oh, but it's not true damage, so then it's fine. People don't understand what true damage does then. True damage only matters if you don't do damage in the first place. Okay? Because if you don't do damage in the first place, the fact that you do minus 10 damage doesn't matter. You still are going to do 13 damage, basically, because of the way the weapon works, okay? That's kind of what true damage does, and that's the reason why it's considered good, okay? The problem here is that this doesn't matter. Alm can definitely hit hard enough to begin with. It's very easy when you have a 16 might weapon that combos into bonus doubler. Like, hello. I'm not sure if you realize this, but with attack plus, Alm hits 66 attack. And that's without merges. Attack is not the problem here. And then on top of that, he's actually bulky and can combo into brazen attack res. Who designed this? Seriously, who designed this? This character is literally Ira but green, because he literally has Lunar Flash. Now I'm at the point that I'm like, if Ira gets an ult, I kind of want it to be a bow. Or not a bow, but a lance. But let's be honest, Jugro getting seasonals, that's probably never gonna happen. I also love how Alm just decided to say, screw the rules of this banner that have nothing but armors and calves. I'm gonna be an infantry unit. For some reason. What? Man, must be nice to be blessed like that. Either way. This weapon is really broken, and that's just with the base effect giving you attack. Then you had the other effect that reduce your attack, or rather the enemy's attack, by 25% of their res. To put it simply, if you're dealing with someone with 40 defense and res, you get an extra 10 attack, and they lose 10 attack. And people try to tell me that Lunar Arc is better. I am shocked that people even think that. Anyway, moving on to comparison. So, as far as Echidna is concerned, if it wasn't for Lunar Flash, you could actually make the case that Alm, okay, if you try to stray away of his weapon, would be worse than Echidna. Because Echidna is easier to obtain, easier to merge, and overall does everything the same way as Alm does. The problem is that Lunar Flash exists, and they decided to give it to an already busted unit. And so Echidna is kind of pointless here. And Hilda, as far as Hilda's concerned, the only thing you can make that's sort of a valid point is the fact that if there's no one with more defense than her within two squares, she ends up with 43-43, which ends up equaling Alm in terms of speed. I don't remember a Frey whatever. I don't remember the rest of the name of the weapon. Freyvacker, I think, or whatever. I don't remember if it provided speed itself, so there's that. But yeah, you basically tie up with Alm in speed, and as far as attack is concerned, you're actually ahead of by 8 points. So there's that, and on top of that, Hilda is actually able to provide support if, you know, there's a unit with more def than her, providing them with 4 extra attack and speed, making Hilda an overall better support unit that can also serve as an attacking unit. That said, the fact that she doesn't get the enemy's attack down, has less bulk overall than Alm, just kinda, yeah, yikes. And those are, by the way, the best comparison I can make to Alm. You can also make the case that Edelgard is a good comparison. To some extent, I would agree, but not really. Edelgard is a different beast altogether, and her res is complete garbage. In Alm's case, you can just combo Brazen Attack res with him on top of his weapon, and then you end up with a very comfortable 40 res. I wish I was making that up. Alm's weapon is utterly busted, and I'm just glad it doesn't have cooldown -1, since unlike Shannon, in this case, it makes sense that it doesn't have cooldown -1. Yes, I'm still bitter about that as well. Either way, as far as builds are concerned, I don't think the first one should surprise anyone. This is literally the Ira build, but with Lunar Flash instead of Regnal Astra. This set has proven itself many a times on Ira, and I expect it to do just as well on Alm, because Alm literally just has more stats. As far as the second set is concerned, this is a set that I hope no one here ever has to deal with. Once Brazen Attack res is up, you're basically looking at 48 def and 48 res with buffs. 48 def, 48 res on top of 59 speed, meaning you'll typically have 10 more speed than whatever you're fighting, meaning that on top of dealing with 48 def and 48 res, they're dealing with a 40% damage reduction. In other words, they're fucked. That's the best way I can really describe this. The only way to really deal with this at this point are AoEs, and even then, you're reliant, okay, on like ranged unit that probably won't get the kill. It's honestly kind of disgusting. Now with that said, I don't think I have to explain more here. It's very straightforward. As far as the second set is concerned, there's also this one, which is a Brave Axe set. Very similar to the Brave Bow set I've showcased with Legendary Alm on Legendary Alm's banner. Surprising absolutely no one, this is actually just as solid. Essentially, you hit and then you proc Lunar Flash every time. You're also looking at 62 attack, and if you're in RAF range, that's an extra 10 damage. Hit, proc, if the enemy is still alive, get hit, hit again, and then proc again, and probably in RAF range this time. I don't think I have to explain what kind of damage this does. It pretty much kills whatever you're dealing with. The only thing that could be somewhat dangerous is Special Fighter and such skills, but guess what? At this point it doesn't matter. If you're in RAF range, you get one charge. Then Flashing Blade will allow you to get another charge, and then you proc Lunar Flash anyway, through the goddamn skill. Welcome to Ulm, everybody! Wee! Very fair and balanced unit. There's really not much you can do about him. He's going to be constantly extremely annoying in AA. He's going to be very strong in A for raids if people are willing to spend for him. And guess what? He also scores 185 BST, so you're going to have to deal with him constantly and not just only for his season like Larceny. So yeah. Ulm gets yet another good ult. There's I don't think Ulm has a single bad version. Well, there is one, which is the Brave version, but like, at this point, who cares? The Legendary ult is so strong, this is so strong, the base version was strong for a time. Then kinda aged poorly, but that probably will change because he's gonna get a Resplendent ult for no reason. And therefore ends up having more attack, and that will fix most of his problems. Again. You know. Meanwhile, Salif does not have a single use outside of... Ooh, AR defense, everyone. My favorite. No amount of Resplendent ult is going to fix that. And with that little note of depression, I'm going to leave it here. Hopefully this was insightful and worth the wait. But yeah, I don't think I have much to say here. So, yeah. I'll be seeing you all, probably not tomorrow, but the day after maybe, for the Refine tier list update, which I actually have good news for. All of them are good. Sure wish I could have said the same about last month. But, you know. With that said, I'll be seeing you all next time. Have a nice one, everyone.